Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar today from the Institute of Mechanical Engineers on Industry 4.0. What could I start, scale and sustain my digital transformation? Industry 4's, all right, you move right on. Brilliant. No, it's all right. So this event's going to be recorded and it'll be available in the Process Industries Division YouTube playlist. All attendee medias are disabled to allow for a smoother presentation, but you can submit questions through the Q&A or chat tabs available at the top right, and we will answer as many of them as possible within the time. The slides will be made available at the speaker's discretions and distributed to confirmed attendees at the end. And at that note, I'll hand you over to Nicole, who is going to be the first speaker and facilitator for this exciting event. Over to you, Nicole.
Thank you very much, Ian, and welcome to everybody who's joined us this lunchtime. My name is Nicole Ballantyne. I'm a fellow of the Institute of Mechanical Engineers. I first joined the IMechE as a MPDS student. I was sponsored by Metalbox through university doing MechEng. I've worked in manufacturing most of my life and innovation and digital transformation for the last 10 years. Joining me on the panel today is Andre, Keith and Lily, and I'm going to give them each about 20 seconds to introduce themselves. So Andre, you're up.
All right, thanks Nicole and welcome everybody. My name is Andre Polak. I'm Head of Manufacturing Digitalization at Elmat UK. I've been in manufacturing all of my working life, and for the last 7 or 8 years I've been heavily focusing on digital transformation in manufacturing organizations in the UK and throughout Europe. Okay, over to you, Keith.
Okay, thank you, Andre. My name's Keith Thornhill. I head up the food and beverage business for Siemens and for UK and Ireland. I've been in automation and deploying automation for far too many years, 40 odd years. So really excited to be part of this discussion.
Hi, I'm Lily Melody. I'm a knowledge transfer manager within the materials and manufacturing team at Innovate UK Business Connect, and I'll be sharing with you today a bit about our programme Made Smarter Innovation.
Thank you very much, and hopefully everybody online has used the QR codes. Please do connect with us on LinkedIn, and we'd be happy to answer questions afterwards or connect with you. Oops. So the agenda for this next hour is, we've obviously already done the speakers, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why we're doing this session, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about Industry 1, 2, 3, 4, where we're at, and what ISA 95 is. I'm then going to hand over to Andre, who's going to talk about the SIRI, which is the Smart Industry Readiness Index, and then Keith, Andre and myself are going to bring some real life case studies to life about how digital transformation has helped manufacturers. And then Lily will talk at the end about funding and innovation. And then we'll open it up to the floor for Q&A. We've got quite a wide range of participants here, so hopefully we'll have some good questions. So the Process Industries division did a survey last year around digital transformation and Industry 4, and put it out to the members what they wanted, asking what would you like to know more about. And as you can see, pretty much everyone said that using digital technologies will help their business, and they'd like to hear more real life case studies about digital transformation and how it's helped other businesses. So that's really where we focus this session. In the Process Industries group, especially in the food and drink division, we've talked about how we can potentially do more of these sessions and really focus in on either the business need, the process, or on the digital technologies themselves. So hopefully there'll be more coming in the series later on. So Industry 4, just setting the scene. I mean, I'd be super surprised if people haven't seen this slide before. And I was quite surprised when we were asked to talk about Industry 4 and not Industry 5, which is now we're hearing beating drums about what is Industry 5 and what's the next industrial revolution. But over, since the first industrial revolution and the transformation from water to steam, there has been each industrial revolution, there's been a transformation really around jobs and how the value has been added to businesses and business output. Industry 4 was something that was introduced by the German government kind of in the 2010s. And then really it was I think it was probably a bit more of a marketing tool to get everyone excited about the next wave of innovation and technologies that could help industry to be more productive. Oh, I forgot to move my own slide on. All right. What were the main differences between industry and Industry 4? So Industry 3, very much when I was starting my career in manufacturing, was all around automation and the automation of those physical processes, but limited integration between the processes and the management systems. And really that kind of transfer into Industry 4 is around that integration of the digital technologies and using more and more data to make faster and faster decisions, giving the right people the right information at the right time to make productivity improvements. Of course, alongside Industry 4, again, hopefully most of you will have heard of this, but ISA 95 is an international standard that helps to align and verbalize what Industry 4 is all around. I quite like this graphic because it really kind of talks on the left hand side, it's talking about the time, that reaction time for signals and for data to be transferred. And you might recognize some of those words in the right hand of that graphic around, the top level, that business planning, the ERP system in a factory, months and days for that kind of business planning level, but right down to the bottom level, which is those signals and sensors that are on the production floor, on the production process. And really what we're driving at in Industry 4 again is around that reaction time to be able to make good business decisions, and to change the output. We're not waiting a week for all the details coming from the shop floor, but being able to make rapid changes in processes, rapid changes in the production scheduling to maximize output and profit, reduce energy, reduce material wastage, etc. So really kind of improving productivity and making business better. So that was a super whistle-stop tour around Industry 4 and where it is and why we're here. Again, I don't think any of that will come as a surprise to anybody. Always happy to talk to people about Industry 4 and ISA 95. Just connect with me. But now, what's super interesting is what Andre is going to talk about, which is the Smart Industry Readiness Index. And this is an index that was developed by the World Economic Forum and very much provides a framework in which digital transformation can happen and should happen, because many companies that I've worked with they want a new technology, they want to innovate, but there's just so many different options. Where do they start and how do they focus their energy? And hopefully, Andre, you're going to give us some insight into that.
Okay, thanks very much, Nicole. Thanks for the introduction into Industry 4. I'm going to talk about how do we make sense out of all of this by using a framework such as SIRI. So let me just introduce you into the things that we're going to cover. So we'll start off by looking at what Smart Industry Readiness Index is, how it works, how do we implement it within the businesses, what are the outcomes of the engagement through a SIRI, and what sort of time we're looking at to complete from start to finish. So SIRI as a framework was developed in Singapore back in 2016 with a single aim to help manufacturing businesses to start, scale, and sustain their digital transformation in the most pragmatic way. So SIRI is heavily focus on the outcomes of the technology that you adopt rather than technology itself. And as Nicole suggested, is also backed by World Economic Forum as best practice framework for digitalization within manufacturing landscape or industries. When we share these slides, feel free to click on the hyperlink there and I'll explain a little bit more about what CIRI is and how it works. So in terms of, just change my slides. When we talk about Industry 4 in context of Smart Industry Readiness Index, we always refer to 16 dimensions or 16 areas of digital transformation that any organization needs to consider when it's working on a larger scale roadmap for its transformation. But the key thing is you can, no matter what business you are, you can't focus on all of them. You always have to prioritize. So if we just look at this just from the understanding perspective point of view, in the middle, we've got technology. And yes, technology is very important. If there wasn't for recent advances in technology, we probably wouldn't be sitting here and talking about Industry 4. But what we also need to remember that we always need to apply technology to well-designed and fit-for-purpose processes, whether that's processes for our operations or supply chain or product lifecycle or overall product development. But last but not least, we can't forget about the organization and its people and this the management structures within the business. So all of this is what CIRI considers as part of a digital transformation. At the beginning, before the framework was fully developed, there was a big survey, big global survey that looked into what manufacturers need and where do they struggle as far as the digital transformation goes. And one of the key things that came back was that businesses didn't really know where to start and how to start. And after they went past that point, they didn't really know sort of how should it all sequence in terms of roadmap. So these were the key focus areas that the framework is trying to address. So one of the key things when we go into businesses is trying to work out where do we focus and how do we know that what we focus on actually matters. It will shift the dial within the business. And I'll talk about two different approaches that most businesses tend to take. One of them, the first one, is what I would call technology-led approach. So this is when businesses will look at the sort of the emerging technologies across all of these different areas and try to think about what would be useful to us, what should we adopt in order to be more competitive. That at the beginning looks quite simple. It gets really a lot more complicated once you start using your search engine and looking into Google and finding out there's loads of different vendors and loads of different solutions that could work. And it gets even more complicated once you start typing the words of Industry 4 into Google. You just very quickly become overwhelmed. So this is one of the key things that CIRI as a framework is trying to address through a tier process where we look at what is your digital maturity as it is at the moment across these 16 dimensions that we looked at. We'll then compare that to the broader community. So these would be the similar organizations that went through the CIRI process globally. And at the moment, it's around 6,000 businesses that went through CIRI. It's a global and national framework for many, many countries. We'll then consider what is the impact on bottom line. So across the key cost categories, how does the selected technology makes an impact? And we'll also consider what is the impact on the business objectives, key KPIs that company wants to drive going forward in order to achieve its vision and strategy. So this is very much focused on the senior leadership team within the organizations. The idea is if the senior leadership team gets it and is willing to support it and can see how digital transformation enables their overall business vision and strategy, then things are likely to happen. So who needs to be involved? We always talk about CIRI as a cross-functional assessment and roadmap building exercise. It's not just for technical people. I'm not going to go through all of these, but it's important I'll just pick out two that are really important. One of them being supply chain. So, how does the information flow across the top of the organization from sensing a demand all the way to delivering your product to your customers? So that's very often not the big area of focus for organizations for very wrong reasons, because that's where quite a lot of benefit actually is. And the second point I'd like to point out on this is about involving HR in your digital transformation, because what's likely to happen in years to come, your skill set within the business will need to adjust to the technologies that you want to bring into the company. So having HR on board and having them to think about, the kind of the talent management and talent planning, it's really important, because once you need the technology, if you don't have people, the benefit is unlikely to happen. Okay, just very quick overview. This framework doesn't take a long time to deliver. From initial engagement all the way to delivery, we're probably talking about 3 to 4 weeks. There's about 6 days worth of work to deliver this framework. We start off by understanding what are the business objectives and what is the overall strategy, because the digital transformation sits that level below of the overall business strategy. Then it's about 1 or 2 days on site, talking to key people, trying to understand where is the value, where are the opportunities. Day 3 is the official CIRI assessment, where we go over what is Industry 4 and how do we prioritize and where we are at the moment. We'll then bring it all together and then we'll deliver the high-level transformation roadmap. So this is the approach that we take at building the digital transformation roadmap for businesses. So some of the outcomes, again, very quickly, just to give you an idea, you know where you are from a benchmarking point of view, which is useful for some businesses, because sometimes businesses think they're very mature, but they're not, and sometimes it's the other way around. Knowing what to focus on is one of the key deliverables, because you can't do it all. You just need to be focusing on things that will have a biggest impact on you as an organization. But importantly, it's not just about letting people to imagine what the future looks like, but also is being able to say what is the business value of that. So transferring these initiatives into a business impact is one of the key things that we can deliver. Then we've got a roadmap, and overall, we are independent and impartial, so we don't have a product to sell. Okay, so I'm coming to the end of this. So ultimately, what this engagement is trying to do for businesses is trying to align leadership team on what are the priorities and the next logical steps across next few years. Because if we have supply chain team that's pulling in one direction, operations trying to do something else, then there's going to be misalignment across the organization, and the likelihood of the overall end-to-end digital transformation happening is quite low at that point. Okay, so we'll keep case studies for later. I think I'm handing over back to you, Nicole, and Keith. And like Nicole said, if this sounds interesting, feel free to reach out on LinkedIn, and I can explain it in a bit more of a detail how does the overall process works.
Awesome, thanks, Andre. I think what I find so interesting about CIRI is the fact that it is a global framework, and that similar businesses, similar industries can compare themselves. So use that benchmarking tool globally.
Yeah.
So you're not comparing process industry against a discrete manufacturer. You can actually compare against similar type activities globally.
And if I can elaborate on that point, Nicole, is actually quite an important thing that you mentioned there, because we know that process industries or food and beverage are one of the most mature organizations when it comes to digital maturity across these 16 dimensions. There's various reasons, and some of them I'll talk about later on. But that's really important for prioritization, this apple-to-apple comparison, because what's standard in one type of manufacturing sector is maybe really advanced in another. Okay.
Cool. Over to you, Keith.
You're on
mute.
mute.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, I'll do the unmute thing. Yes, well, thanks, Nicole. Yeah, so Siemens, we've been very successful, I think, in Industry 3.0, and automation and digitalization is actually a key part of the portfolio as we go forward, and we start to address Industry 4 and as Nicole said, Industry 5 and metaverse and all the good things that are coming down the line. But interestingly, I've put some of this stuff to life now in terms of where we're active in a number of different areas. And as already mentioned, data is such an important part of all of this. And it's not just so much data. Companies have lots of data. It's how you then turn that data into the insight that drives continuous improvement. And I think sometimes companies might get a little bit heady on terms of the technology, rather than it's just sometimes just tools. The technology are just tools to drive continuous improvement. And so certainly in the food industry, it's something that downplaying the technology sometimes gets the results better than promoting the technology. But at the end of the day, it's all about measuring. It's all about, if you can measure it, you can manage it, and that's quite a simple strap line there. But actually, it's so important, because once you can measure it, you can value it, you can put some monetized the value of that, you can set your ROIs in place, and that's what will drive the continuous improvement and the investment to deliver the success. So one of the big KPIs, or one of the popular KPIs, I would say, is OEE, and that's overall equipment effectiveness. And that's something that with SCADA systems and things like that is not overly new. It's something that we've been looking at for many years. But the difference now is we're looking at real-time OEE, and we're looking at total connectivity across the full production line. And OEE basically is the combination of availability of the asset, the performance of the asset, and the quality of production. So there's three elements to OEE. But real-time OEE and one source of the truth is driving on that connectivity piece. And once you start to bring all that data together, you can start to identify the bottlenecks. And once you start to identify the bottlenecks, they're the things that you can focus on from a process optimization piece that starts to deliver some significant improvements. World-class OEE is 85% and above. And so if you're with a business that's at 85% and you believe it's 85%, because that's another challenge, then you're doing really well. Most companies are significantly below that, and it's understanding how you can improve makes a massive difference to the performance of the company. Next slide, Nicole, please. So just to sort of try and bring some of the aspects that we're certainly involved in. Some of these are quite unique, I guess, in terms of, like, this one particularly is like aquaculture. So fish farming is something where if you look at the most cost burden on a fish farm, it's the feed. So optimizing the feed for the fish stock, where you're optimizing yield. It's all about growing the fish as quickly as possible to suddenly get a revenue stream from your activities. But if you overfeed it, you can then get water degradation, and that water degradation can increase bacteria, which then has a problem with the fish. So there's a balance there, but most fish farms are just basically given the same dose of feed, irrespective of the condition of the fish. And so when you start to monitor and this measure again what's going on, so in this instance we've got video images of how the fish are performing, the yield, the growth of the fish, the water quality. You can start to optimize the amount of feed, the amount of nutrition that goes in there to actually optimize the performance. So when all this comes together, you get to a situation where you're adaptive to the variability that's taking place, and that's a massive thing in most manufacturing. If you can control variability in a way that you can predict variability, therefore do something about it before it actually has some problem, then that is what Industry 4 will deliver, the productivity benefits of connecting multiple things together. So that's just an indication of bringing multiple measuring devices to give a better picture of what's going on, and then adapting to that to optimize performance. The next case study is again around variability. So if anyone's interested in whiskey, whether it's the drinking of or the process of, then this is one that we did a project with Innovate UK, a UK government body for investing in productivity gains and technology as part of that. And Diageo, a company called KickTech up in Scotland, a systems integrator, and Strathclyde University, where they were looking at the variability of the cask itself when they came to fill whiskey. So what we did was, again, the variability is that there's different types of cask depending on what the cask was used for prior to the whiskey maturation. But also it's a manual process of actually producing the cask in the first place, and each cask has got variability. So just filling in terms of a volume fill doesn't really get you where you need to be, because what happens is you either get underfill, which is obviously poor performance, or overfill, which is waste, and you get this situation where you've got this continual fight to optimize the fill. So we automated the process. We did a digital twin and simulated the process initially. We used computational fluid dynamics to model the the filling speed, because what we wanted to do is fill at speed, but fill accurately on a variable basis. So again, adapting to the conditions that we had. And this was something that we did, and we have radar filling sensors in the filling head to actually monitor the amount of volume that we're putting through per cask. We're also having now data on there in terms of monitoring the alcohol by volume. So for monitoring casks and auditing from the tax revenue, they can very quickly understand what that particular fill was and what the alcohol volume is in that particular cask. So in terms of auditing and getting to the data, it's really, really efficient. So the outcome was 99% repeatability in fill, and we're filling between 40 to 60 seconds across a range of different casks. So again, using technology to optimize the process and controlling that variability. And I think I've got one more, I think, on this. So this one was, you may have heard of a company called Nestle, but this is a particular interesting site because it's just been sold off actually, so no longer part of Nestle. But it's a company that makes sauces and soups for obviously the food retail sector, and it was quite an aged site. So this is a typical situation in the food industry: a lot of obsolescence, a lot of aging equipment, but still having to sort of produce something. And what they needed to do was understand how could they turn this factory into a smart factory, which is a good old question. When you've got an aging asset and aging assets. So one of the things we did was value hacking, which is basically a glorified term to understand the digital maturity of the particular company initially, and then work on the areas that we could improve the business. But there had to be a vision. There had to be a vision for the factory, because like Andre mentioned, this isn't just about technology. It's about the culture of the business to understand what this all means and how they're going to improve, and have the whole company on board with that decision making and the continuous improvement process. So it was about understanding what the digital benefits could be from the business. It was about modernizing the automation systems that you already had. But interestingly, a lot of the automation was upgraded, not because it was particularly old and not working very well, but from a cyber reason. There's a big weakness within the facility from a cyber attacks as well. So it wasn't just the fact that it was aging, but it was because it was the cyber issue was one of the big pluses that this company needed to upgrade. And an important point, I think, for anybody that's going in down the digital transformation area. And then it was a case of trying to link and understand where the bottlenecks were and driving that continuous process. So there's lots and lots of benefits that came from the activity we did. But just to look at like the process of heating the kettle was decreased by 23%. That's a big saving in terms of just the energy around that. But there was also areas around cleaning in process, another optimized process where they could actually reduce the water and chemical utilization per year to the tune of 35,000 euros. And the energy costs across the plant was reduced by 300,000 euros per annum. Now, if you're a small SME, that could be a very, very big number relative to how much you're producing, or if you're a very large company, it might be a drop in the ocean. But it depends on the size of the company, clearly. But this was quite a small company, and they've really benefited from the vision, bringing everybody together and driving the technical capabilities by connecting data and improving the processes. Nicole?
Cool. Andre, are you taking charge again to show your case studies? I think.
Okay, back to me. No problem.
Yeah.
Let me just share my screen, yeah?
Yeah. So I think what your case studies, Keith, illustrates to me is there was each of those interventions, those companies had a project in mind. They had a problem that they wanted to solve. They knew where they could gain value, and through using technology, you enabled them to extract that value. And I think having that focus is the absolute super important part But then I think, from this webinar, the whole piece is around, we can do lots of individual interventions, but how do we know that we are doing industry 4, or how are we doing compared to everybody else? And I think that was the main driver question.
Yeah, no, I think there's a couple of things. I think there needs to be process optimization, because technology is going to deliver that process, and then they're quick wins, and that gives a return on investment. But then it's how you connect that up to the transformational stuff, which is when you then connect the production to operations, to the retailers, to the supply chain, to the logistics. That's when you get total transformation, and that's a bigger gig altogether.
Yeah, I mean, this again is a good point, because it's important to have a grand vision, to know where you're going in 3 to 5 years' time, and sort of how much it's going to cost and how much it's going to deliver. But also, you have to have some of these short-term wins, some things that you can just have in place in 3 months' time, and show a good ROI, and that will only get people excited about what you're doing. And obviously, at that point, you already know where you're going. So the idea is there's already fitting all together at that point. So I'm just going to talk about a case study, which is basically a case study of 32 organizations. It's part of the program we deliver together with High Value Manufacturing Catapult. Invest9 was also part funded by Innovate UK in Northern Ireland, where we've looked at 32 businesses and their approach to digital transformation. What they were all at the place where they were thinking of either starting something significant, or sort of having a bit of a review about where they are and what they're doing. They wanted a view from independent, impartial people. So I'll share with you some of the insights that came from this, and at the end I'll wrap up with some of the key insights from me and my experience on digital transformation / Industry 4. So, as I said, it was 32 companies, and we were looking at what challenges and common priorities they had at the time of the intervention. We broke them down into 3 key buckets: small businesses, medium businesses, and large businesses for analysis. And oops, I went the wrong way. And we've got sort of 3 key sectors that we've also used for analysis. But What's interesting is when we look at data. So overall, you can say the bigger the organization, the more digitally mature the business would be across these 16 dimensions that I introduced as part of the CIRI framework. However, it's not always the case. We encountered some small businesses that were quite digitally mature. So if you look at the 3 organizations here, their maturity is quite comparable to much larger businesses. And one of the reasons why that was the case, it was really down to a strong and focused leadership team, knowing where they want to go and where they want to take their organization. They already had foundations in place, and they were kind of looking at the next step. So it's not all about you have to be big to do digital transformation, or you have to have loads of money. It's about knowing what to do and how to extract the value from digital tools and technology. So not doing things for the sake of doing a technology. And that's sort of where the CIRI framework can also help businesses. So if we now look at what are some of the challenges that we found in small businesses. So now I'm taking the kind of the average view across all small businesses that would fit within the bracket. Most of them would still get a better return on investment by focus on best practice and foundations. And if you would like to know what these foundations are, then again, feel free to reach out. I can share with you what are the foundations of a digital transformation as defined by us and CIRI framework. Because clearly, if I was to use an example, if you as a business not fully utilizing the data that you collect, the dashboards, the visualizations that you have, there's no point. If the culture is not there, there's no point in investing in more of data and digital analysis, because you just need to have a maybe improved process to get the most out of what you have. There's also these businesses, what was quite common, that they would have, let's say, ERP system that would be heavily underutilized, or it wouldn't be working properly. So again, just trying to fix what you already have and making it work for you was one of the key takeaways for small organizations. And there's plenty of opportunities for discrete technology solutions, but linking it back to where do we need to focus as a business and how much value we can get from it was, again, one of the key takeaways for small businesses. So now if we move on to larger organizations, so what we will see there is that generally these businesses would have a good daily management system. They would have most of the foundations in place. So they would be ready to take on a more strategic and significant digital transformation program. Some of the things that are key to them is about, okay, at this point, we not only have ERP, but we maybe also have some version of a CRM system. We may also have a MES system, but how do we integrate these systems so that they are, the data flows from shop floor all the way down to the top floor? It's one of the key challenges for a larger organizations, because when you have siloed systems, you're also introducing quite a lot of administrative burden on people to move data between systems. They're also looking at there could be some gaps. So maybe it's a business that needs a new MES system or it needs an ERP system, but they don't really know how to implement that system, what's right for them. And one of the key things, what resonated and what came back from the business is that having that future vision, what their future applications or systems should be like, how does it all come together to enable that end-to-end digital thread, was also one of the key takeaways from large organizations. Okay, so on this slide, let me just bring it all together in terms of Industry 4 and digital transformation and the program that we did in Northern Ireland. So what I see is that manufacturers struggle with technology selection and adoption. So these two things are different for me. The selection is about knowing what to focus on, and adoption is actually how do we implement it within the organization. Selection is about having a plan. Adoption is about putting that plan in place. And that sometimes leads to how people feel about technology. So if the technology is brought into the organization and is not implemented very well, it's not going to be received very well by the people on the receiving end. So that leads us to a consideration that we need to make about changing our approach to how technology is selected and adopted. So selection is pretty much in our context all about the CERI framework. Adoption is all around the change management and transformational capabilities. One of the key things that I've witnessed over my years in digital transformation is that your digital transformation will fail if you don't have aligned and focused leadership team on priorities, and you also have to have some short-term wins in your overall vision. The holistic transformation is not just about technology, it's about process and organization as well. So people and the processes within your business. Industry 3, the way to think about it is the automation of physical processes. Industry 4, it's about automation of insights and decision-making from your data. So building autonomous systems. That's why sometimes businesses struggling to see to see what the Industry 4 is, because it's not something that you can touch and feel, because it's data and insights and how long it takes to get to that point. The transformation capabilities are key for successful deployment. And the digital transformation foundations also are important to kind of know where you are on foundations before you make an investment. If you would like to know more about these two things, again, feel free to reach out to me. We don't have time to dive into detail. I could be spending another half an hour just talking about what are the key capabilities you need to have within the business to successfully manage the change. But just wanted to raise this point about it's important to consider, not just to jump into, this is my shopping list, these are the systems I need to bring into the organization. You need to have a way of deploying them within your business. And the last thing, don't let perfection to be the enemy of the progress. On a long-term digital transformation, there's always going to be little setbacks along the way. But as long as you've got the whole organization aligned on what you're trying to do, and you've got that destination in the future everybody's going to, the people will understand that. So, don't try to be perfect all the time. And I just got, again, these slides will be shared with you, just a few testimonials about what we did in Northern Ireland and how businesses sort of received our CERI framework. And yeah, Nicole, I suppose over to you again.
Oh, you
Favorite
missed
case
one of your
studies.
best testimonials there.
Oh, did
Andrew.
I? Okay, let me just.
So that
Which
was a
one was
project that
that?
we did together. Was
Oh,
with
right,
your,
yes.
with Sheffield Forge
Mm,
Masters. It's absolutely fine.
Yes.
So Sheffield Forge Masters has a Mestec MES system, and oh, it's fine. You don't need to.
Am I back on it now?
It's coming. Maybe there we are. Yeah. So I'm head of customer success at an MES company, Mestec, which is a manufacturing execution system company, and along with Andre, we did the Smart Industry Readiness Index assessment at Sheffield Forge Masters to help them to focus and understand how vertical integration, well, how their program is going and how digital transformation is working at Sheffield Forge Masters. But obviously the key interest I had was how we could enable them to use the manufacturing execution system better to help them to realize some of those quick wins, really. So I shall now go on to my case studies.
All right. Thanks, Nicole.
I'm going to be super quick because I think we could talk for hours and hours on examples, and I think what's useful that everyone should take away from this is, yeah, every business is different, every business is unique, and it's about, Andre, you talk quite clearly about having focus and knowing where your key pain is, and if you don't know where that is, get someone in to help you to identify where that is, and then you can make a bit of an action plan. So I've got two quick case studies. They're on our website, so I've got a link later on. So Domino Printing, they make inkjet printers. They had a MES that had been that they built over time and was not being supported anymore, and they wanted to replace that. And they'd been through the whole TQM, TPM, lean kind of exercises over the years, so they were really quite good at manufacturing and they knew their processes super well, but they wanted to absolutely hone down to the granularity of how do we make that next continuous improvement. And this, as I say, there's a quote there from Dante, who's the manufacturing engineer on site, that saving 30 seconds here or 60 seconds there doesn't sound much, but actually added up over a year, it's a lot. But you have to be getting those measurements to be able to justify that you're actually improving, which is what they did. And Martin's Rubber is another company, and this is a much smaller company, but they're doing very bespoke, individual. Some of their parts run for a long time, but they're generally small batch production manufacturer, and the plan changes ever such a lot. And it was about how they align production with planning to be able to maximize the production and maximize their productivity. And having an MES and having the different systems talking to each other to advanced planning and scheduling system and being seamless, they realized some pretty major within the first few months, 15% improvement in their labor productivity, just knowing who should be where when to maximize in terms of the planning and scheduling cycle. So over to you, Lily. Yeah, that's the end of the case studies. I hope we've given enough kind of content and enough information and ideas. And yeah, it all starts with your idea and your problem in your head, and asking that question and reaching out. And Keith, Andre, and myself are always more than happy to talk to people about challenges that you have in your manufacturing business. So Lily, over to you. How can you help, please?
Yeah, hi. So thanks for having me here today. I'm Lily Melody, Knowledge Transfer Manager within the Materials and Manufacturing team at Innovate UK Business Connect. And I work on the Made Smarter Innovation Programme. So I'm here to tell you a bit about that today, and then share about some of our upcoming events and funding opportunities. So on Made Smarter, from 2020 to 25, Innovate UK Business Connect is working on behalf of UK research and innovation to join communities together to transform UK manufacturing. There's a £300 million partnership between the government and industry, and the aim is to create a fully connected, dynamic manufacturing ecosystem, inspiring innovation across academia, technology providers and manufacturers. And you can also see on this slide some of the key deliverables and achievements. So as part of Made Smarter Innovation, we have our research centres, where we've created a number of specific targeted research centres to drive growth, focus and engagement across innovation. Then there's our innovation hubs, which are fully funded test beds, living labs and other development environments, and their purpose is to drive innovation by enabling the testing of digital solutions. We have digital accelerators with the technology and sustainability accelerators, working with both manufacturers and innovative UK startups and scale-ups. The programme will see leading innovators develop technology prototypes. And then we have our collaborative R&D. So this has been a series of funding calls that invites and encourages powerful collaborations to submit funding applications for joint project work. And these can unite partners of all sizes with various skill sets. For instance, they can span technology development organisations working with the likes of additive manufacturers and machine learning and manufacturing businesses in sectors such as pharmaceutical, food production, aerospace and textiles. And you can see a whole host of our case studies on our website online, which you can access by either scanning the QR code, or one of my colleagues has dropped some of the links into the chat as well, so you can click off there. So some next steps on how we can get you involved. So we've got a range of events, funding and communications we can get you linked in with. We've recently ran the Women in Manufacturing event, which brought together manufacturers to work together on changing perceptions on this topic. And back in June, we had a stand at Smart Factory Expo, where we showcased a selection of the manufacturers who had been funded by the Made Smarter Innovation programme. So some of the upcoming events, we've got Made Smarter Adoption at Advanced Engineering, which is towards the end of October, and that's located in Birmingham. And then mid-November time, Innovate UK are partnering with the Digital Manufacturing Summit in Windsor, and you can see a code on the screen there to access some complimentary tickets if you wanted to join that event. We currently have a few funding opportunities available that might be relevant to you, such as Innovate UK Smart Grants and Knowledge Transfer Partnerships. And we'd sort of recommend that if you want to be the first to hear about manufacturing related funding, events or news, we'd suggest you sign up to our newsletter or LinkedIn group, which is where we share all of the information first. And that can be accessed via the QR code or all of the links I can see my colleague Lorelei has popped into the chat. Yes, thank you. And if you've got any questions, either get in contact with myself or others at the Made Smarter team, will be able to provide any further help or support.
Great. Thanks, Lily, and thanks, Lorelei. What great teamwork there. I saw them all dropping in there at the end. So that is the end of our webinar around Industry 4. Is there any? I can't see any questions in the questions box. Has nobody got any questions? I think, as I said before, we could probably talk about this forever. Yeah, you've got a question for Lily. Go on then.
Yes. Yeah, can you tell us a little bit more about smart grants? So we see quite a lot of businesses that are ready to go, but anytime they can get a little bit of support when it comes to deployment of their digital strategy and initiatives, that would be helpful. So if you can elaborate on them a little bit about what they are, who they are for, and that kind of stuff.
So I think we'd have to look into the detail to see if it's suitable for each individual business. So on that, it's probably best if they contact us directly, if a business has any specific questions. Lorelei there has dropped.
Okay, I can see where the more detail is going to be in chat.
Yeah, smart grants, I think, are very much for developing new technologies, where I think, Andre, what you're talking about is support to implement and adopt technologies. and I'm not quite sure what the Made Smarter adoption program is doing in terms of funding, but each region has been allocated more funding on the Made Smarter adoption program. Most regions are now involved in that. I'll put the link in the email that will go out to everybody afterwards. But I haven't got a nice colleague like you, Lily, who's dropping the links in the chat. I think Siemens did. I know when I was working more in the sustainability sector, you've got a bank and you lend money, don't you? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, I will learn one day about that switch. Yeah, so yes, part of Siemens is the Siemens Financial Services, and it does help us fund a lot of projects based on the ROI as well. So some of those sort of kickoff types of productivity gains can be financed over a term. So it allows those less risk, I guess, from that. So it does help. It does help some of those projects to get going. But yeah, we do. To answer your question, we do have a Siemens Financial Services.
you will fund or you will lend money against technologies that are not just Siemens technologies.
Yeah, it's an independent. It's an independent. It's
based on the ROI.
It can be, but they can do asset finance, and they can also. It's just like a normal, a bank that you could get from the high street. It's similar. So they're independent, but because they're part of Siemens, we can tie it into an ROI as a technology gain as well.
Cool. Thanks, Keith. Pamela, can you see any more questions? Otherwise, I shall hand back over to Ian. Ian, are you there? Are you there?
Yeah, I can't see any more questions either, Nicole. So yes.
Cool.
I'm here. Thank you, Nicole. Well, that was an interesting webinar for an hour there. As you can see from the slide that Nicole's got up at the moment, all of this webinar and all the other ones that are held are available on the YouTube channel, and there's a QR code there for linking to it. I believe there's some other up and coming webinars. There's one coming up on mechanical joint integrity, which is in a week or so, and a thermal energy storage solution one. And I think there's one last one that's coming up, the hot reality, that's being presented by Dr. Tim Fox, who has presented a lot of papers on this. So that's the end of it. If you can give some feedback, and I believe you click the QR code for that, and PPT certificates will be sent out to those who have attended the event, which come from Murat, as you can see on there with his address, and the feedback form link is also there, as well as the QR code. On that note, I'll say thank you very much for attending, and I hope you all found it interesting.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you close this, Pamela?
I think Pamela's disappeared.
I can't see the link to close it either.
Apologies, I haven't got the button to stop the recording. Does someone else see the button? My team made it disappear.
We've got the same problem, Pamela.
Yeah, it says recording started by Murat.
That's just because we pressed start at the beginning, but then there should be a big yellow button at the top that says now stop. Yeah, but it's not on my version either. I hoped it was on one of yours.
No.
Yeah, on mine it says, yeah, the stop recording's got a padlock, and it's saying and it's grayed out.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay. Right. Let me.
All these people that are still here, are they still listening?
Oh, they've gone away and done something. I'm just trying to log back in. No, I've gone through another. I'm hearing myself twice. I think we're all just going to have to leave. And I'll message in Europe.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Well done, everyone.
Hopefully- yeah,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.